Find your inspiration from all sources, even non-Star Wars things. In this case, I'm inspired by my shoes. I went and grabbed the blank droid templates done by Bobby Sussman in the Mubo's Droid Depot Facebook group and made some color sketches with Photoshop. Alternatively, you can print these templates out and color them out the traditional way. Look for things to take apart, as this will make painting your droid a lot easier. In this particular case, the light up parts of the droid dome are the parts that I will be taking off and mask. Start the project by taking the extra bits off and store them somewhere in an organized manner. In a B-unit droid case, there's wires that runs through the holes and it cannot be detached unless you cut the wires. So I will just mask them and tape them on the bottom of the dome so it won't get paint on. The body is a bit easy because it's just a sphere half. I will start working on the body first as it is easier to work with due to its simple shape. Sand the surface of the droid body with 300 grit sandpaper. If you go with a lower grit sandpaper, you can create some scratch marks that will show up later. It could create some cool weathering effect, but Sarge here will be smoother. I will not sand the dome of the droid to save time. Wipe the surface of the body using a damp cloth. This will remove all sanding dust that could ruin your paint spraying later. These are all the paint colors and brand that I use. I like paint that dries fast, gives good coverage, and durable. The B unit rolls when it moves, so you want something more durable to withstand the friction. If you live in a cold area, warm your paint before spraying. Do this by dipping them in hot water for about 5 minutes. The paint will crackle if you paint with a can that is too cold or too hot. This is what happens when I'm impatient and thought my paint can was fine at room temperature. Shake your paint can well before spraying. Shake for about 1 to 2 minutes. Prime the surface of the droid. Spray in thin passes about 12 inches away from the droid. Do not let it goop up or overspray. Wait in between passes and be patient. Let the primer dry for at least 8 hours. I usually leave it overnight. Sand the primer lightly with a 300 grit sandpaper to remove any bumps, pimples, or accidental goops. If you want that smooth paint look, this is your last chance. Wipe the surface of the droid using a damp cloth like before. Spray the primary color of your droid using the same spraying method as before, thin passes at 12 inches away. I am using camouflage green from Rust-Oleum for this particular project. Let your primary base color dry for at least 8 hours, possibly overnight just to be safe, especially if you live in a cold area. Make sure this base color is fully dry and sticks to the plastic because masking is coming up next and you don't want the masking tape to pull off your paint. Spray clear coat on the body. This creates a layer of protection for the base color because sometimes masking tape can lift the base color off from the plastic surface of the body. Let the clear coat dry for at least 8 hours. It's time for masking. Mask all the areas you don't want your second color to go on. Take your time and make sure you press the masking tape firmly on the surface to avoid bleeding off the paint underneath. Double check your masking to make sure everything you don't want paint on is covered. Nothing like accidental color splash on an area you thought you put masking tape on. I use Tamiya masking tape and highly recommend them over the regular blue masking tape. I also found Tamiya has a masking tape that stretches a bit so you can mask your curves in one go. I will post a link below where to get them. With the mask in place, spray the second color for the droid. In this case, I am using Satin Eden by Rust-Oleum. Let the second color dry for at least 8 hours. Add more mask to cover that second color. Use your nail, toothpick, or sculpting tool to feel the lines of details. Make indentation as you feel through it, so you know where to cut out parts of the mask later. Once you get everything covered, cut the excess part out with a sharp X-Acto knife or modeling knife. Please be careful with the sharp knife. Spray your third color on the droid and let it dry for at least 8 hours. The extra details I want painted on requires a bit more complicated masking. So I went to my CRICUT machine and cut a familiar shape and some Airbrush lettering. The Rebel insignia will be red and the droid call sign will be in neon yellow. Please note, you can create your own intricate mask by taping masking tape together and draw on top of it before cutting the excess part with X-Acto knife or modeling knife. A CRICUT machine is a luxury, not a necessity. Side note, for red and neon yellow, I usually use a white color base before painting them on. I spray on white with an airbrush to get the surface ready for both the red and neon yellow. After the white base is dry, I continue on painting the red and the neon yellow color. I find taking off the masking tape for more intricate details after the paint is dry to the touch is far more efficient versus waiting for it to fully dry and settle before unmasking. I had paint not sticking to the surface and got lifted with the mask when I let it dry completely. In that particular case, I was using a slow dry enamel paint. After you let everything dry, unmask and see your progress. Take it all in. Put the two halves together and look all over for imperfection and take a mental note. You will be fixing them or covering them with weathering later. I painted the rivets with silver using traditional brush due to its quantity and the size of the rivets. Spray a layer of clear coat onto the body and let it dry for at least 8 hours. Let's move on to the dome now. I masked mainly the shield of the dome because I wanted to have stripes on it. The top shield will have a red stripe and the side shields will have the satin Eden color. The exposed machine part, or the area surrounding the eye, will be in silver, and the base color of the dome will match the camouflage green of the body. With the parts separated, it is easier to mask and paint them with different colors. The only thing I have to be worried about is when I paint the satin Eden color onto the base color. Every other detail on this dome will be painted with a brush. I will leave the antenna black as it is. Using the same method like the body, paint the black primer onto the dome, the eye, and the top shield. Leave them to dry for at least 8 hours. Next, spray the base color of your choice. I am using camouflage green for the dome, matching the droid's body. Let it dry for at least 8 hours. Put a layer of clear coat over the base color. As previously mentioned, this creates an extra protection for the base color, in case the masking tape lifts some paint off. Let it dry for at least 8 hours. Mask the areas you don't want your second color on. Spray the second color onto the dome. Let it dry for at least 8 hours. At this point, there's no other part on the dome I want paint using a spray can, so I can remove all the masking tape and get ready to use my traditional brush. With some movie magic, I already have the stripe on top of the shield painted with the red. I grouped it up with the other red details on the body. I used my vinyl mask that I made using a CRICUT machine and painted it with the same Vallejo neon yellow I use on the body. Acrylic paint that are airbrushed tend to dry a lot faster than the spray can paints. I airbrushed the eye part with silver and left it to the side to dry. Now I assemble the whole dome together to see the overall look. This helps me determine what colors I want to add as accents. Time to brush on some accent colors on the dome. In this case, I am adding some silver and black accents onto the details. Time to be creative. Try to brush on thin coats instead of a single goop. Brush strokes are hard to remove if you want that smooth look. Once you're satisfied with your work, mask up the lenses of the dome. You will spray clear coat on the dome and you don't want them to get foggy from it. Spray clear coat on the dome and let it dry for at least 8 hours. Remember those imperfections you had? Let's work on those next. If you want a clean look like the work of Adoradroids, you'd have to use a traditional brush and match the color paint you use to cover those mistakes. If you want the easy way out, there's a couple of weathering methods that you can use to cover these up. This part is completely optional as some people like the clean look. I am personally in the space is dirty side. I will create a separate tutorial for weathering, so I won't go into too much details on this. The first weathering method is using a silver Sharpie to create the illusion of scratches and chips. I have some paints lift off from masking, and this will be the perfect place to cover up with a silver Sharpie. Do the same for some other areas you want to chip up. I love this technique because it is a fast way to cover up my mistakes and it dries really fast too. The second weathering technique is used to replicate some oil and grime. I make a mixture of my own black wash using a combination of black paint, water, and glazing medium. I mix it to the consistency of milk tea. Alternatively, you can also use brown wash to weather your droid, like Red 5 here for example. Prepare 2 paper towels. Fold them a few times so you can use several clean sides consecutively instead of grabbing new ones every time. One paper towel is left dry and the other is lightly soaked with alcohol. I use 70% alcohol in this case, but I think 50% will work. Brush on areas of the droid with this mixture of black wash. Try to fill in the lining of the body in particular. Side note, if you worked on a Gundam model, you can totally use your panel line marker for this. As you can see, I am pretty generous with the black wash and work in sections. Do not try to cover the entire half of the body in black wash in one go. Some parts will be completely dry before you get to wipe them off, and it will be harder to wipe them off at the end. Before the black wash is dry, wipe them off with a dry paper towel. Since a B unit moves in a circular motion, I try to mimic that by wiping the black wash off in a circular motion following the shape of the body. Using the lightly damp with alcohol paper towel, do the same motion. You'll notice that this paper towel picks up more of the black wash versus the dry paper towel. Control your wiping adequately. Stop when you think you have enough weathering. Watch out for rogue fingerprint marks. If you leave a fingerprint mark long enough to dry, it may permanently stay. Once you clear coat over it, it will be very hard to remove that fingerprint without damaging the paint job underneath. Do the same for the dome, and again, work in sections. Once you're satisfied with your weathering job, time to clear coat this project one last time and let it dry for at least 8 hours. For my final clear coat, I tend to leave it to dry overnight to be completely sure. I'd hate to see a fingerprint mark on a finished project because of my impatience of waiting for things to dry. But enough of that. Your droid is now finished. Time to get ready for Batuu. Till the spire, and may the force be with you.